So we worked with them and we developed this very simple three-part strategy, because what we saw in Guatemala was that people were completely unaware of one another. There were groups, thousands of them, working all over Guatemala who had never met one another. Sometimes working on the same problem, duplicating efforts, not understanding that they were working in the same, on the same problem. So we said the first thing is show what is already happening. People don't know. If they just knew, if people really knew what was going on, they would have a very different understanding of their own country. But every day, all they see is killing, right? Because that's all the newspaper's interested in. So every day they see how many people get killed. They never meet a single person who is working on this. Secondly, provide tools for change. We need to design tools that other people can use. That's just a design problem. And thirdly, connect the world, because you solve problems that everyone else is trying to solve, and other people around the world have solved the problems that you're still working on. So by connecting, we can advance both groups. So we had an absolutely extraordinary experience. One of the things that we do is we visualize success. And so we use this process that we call postering. We make posters as if we succeeded. So we design posters as if that's the world that we imagined, it's already happened. And you can walk into the room and feel what the world will be like in that new place. And we made about 50 of these, and we put them in this big room in Guatemala to talk about this approach. And the people walked into the room, it's like, I get it. This is what, we should do this. And one thing I should say is that the idea of Guatemala, when I said, I'm not going to design the country, they said, okay, then you have to change the name of the country. And I said, why do you have to do that? And they said, well, Guatemala Guate is a place, Mala is bad. It's like, how would you like to wake up every day in the United States of bad place? And somewhere along the way in the collaboration, somebody added an A, and it became Guatemala, which is the love of Guate. And it's such a beautiful shift. And it really became a movement. It was about designing a movement, right? Designing a social movement in Guatemala. So we developed this thing called the culture of life, and we said, look, in some cultures, we have very advanced foundations. We have a culture of justice that has a big foundation that we take for granted. We take for granted that we're going to get justice if something bad happens, or at least that we have that as a possibility. You have to build those foundations. The culture of life actually has 9 foundations: the culture of justice, the culture of education, the culture of entrepreneurship, etc. So they made this wonderful event in Guatemala City about the culture of life to introduce the idea of Guatemala, to begin to change the discussion. And they featured in the center of this big traffic circle, they made this kind of Roman circus exhibition. You walked in and you went around and looked at these 9 cultures. And when you got into the center, you were introduced to 200 leaders, the 200 people who were changing Guatemala. And they were diverse, so it was Mayan entrepreneurs and business leaders and government people, and it was really looking at people who were taking the risk to create the new future for the country. And in that first project, we hope to get 1,000 people signed up to be part of this. And after 10 days, we had 11,000 people who became partners with Guatemala and caused a kind of crisis for us because we had no real plan for what to do with 11,000 people. But it became a thing that then traveled to other places in Guatemala. And today, they're working with 2,600 groups, working to make them visible to Guatemalans and to each other. So, let's go through some questions again. Yeah?
I was struck by what you said about the value of beauty, but I was thinking that beauty is often, what we define as beauty is influenced by culture, to some level, to personal taste. And I was wondering, do you think that there is like a universal level, a universal sense or understanding of beauty, or that we need also plural definitions of beauty?
That's a great question. If the question is, if we're committed to beauty, is beauty a universal truth, or are there forms of beauty that are local and cultural, and therefore we have to have a kind of diversity of beauty? And I would say the answer is yes. Because I do think that there is a universal, and in some ways even scientifically provable, notion of beauty, of relationships of form, let's say. That there are certain kind of qualities that you can say universally, we realize that that's beautiful. And we acknowledge that that's a beautiful thing, that that's a beautiful person, that it's a beautiful thing, that it's a beautiful space, etc. At the same time, there are local dialects of that universal beauty. So you do need a diversity, and I think that, if the worst thing that we could have in the world is a really difficult discussion about beauty, it would be absolutely wonderful.